The rain began without warning, heavy and cold, turning the quiet trail into a silver blur. Emma Carter had not planned to stop walking that day. She had needed air, space, something to quiet the noise in her head. But the storm pushed her toward the small lakeside community center, a place she had passed many times without entering. The door was unlocked, light spilling out into the gray afternoon. She stepped inside, shaking water from her coat, unaware that this small decision would shift the course of her life. The room was simple and warm. Folding chairs were stacked near the wall. A coffee machine hummed softly. Old posters about community events hung slightly crooked. Emma felt out of place and oddly safe at the same time. She was about to leave when she noticed a man across the room. He was arranging chairs, focused, careful, as if order mattered to him more than speed. When he looked up, their eyes met, and something quiet settled between them. It was not dramatic or loud. It was steady, like a door opening slowly. Daniel Moore had lived many years learning how to stay calm. Teaching history had trained him to observe, to listen, to pause before reacting. Yet in that moment, something unexpected stirred inside him. He saw a woman who looked tired but alert, someone who carried her thoughts carefully. He sensed a story behind her eyes, one that was still unfolding. He did not know why it mattered, only that it did. He offered her a seat, his voice polite and gentle. Emma accepted, choosing a chair near the window. Outside, rain streaked the glass, softening the view of the lake beyond. She felt like the storm had followed her inside, not in sound, but in feeling. She noticed Daniel watching her briefly before, returning to his task, as if unsure whether looking too long might break something fragile. They spoke in short exchanges at first. Names, weather, the storm. Emma learned that Daniel helped his sister run the center on weekends. Daniel learned that Emma edited books from home, a job that sounded peaceful but often felt lonely. Their words were simple, but their pauses were not. Silence sat comfortably between them, filled with things neither was ready to say. As people began to arrive, Emma realized she had wandered into something she had not expected. The room filled with quiet voices and careful smiles. There was a heaviness in the air, but also a sense of respect. Daniel moved to the front, not with authority, but with kindness. He welcomed everyone, his tone steady, his eyes understanding. Emma understood then that this was a support group, one centered on loss. She considered leaving, but something held her in place. She stayed seated as people shared small pieces of their lives. No details, no drama, just truth. Daniel listened more than he spoke. When he did speak, his words were simple and honest. Emma felt a tightness in her chest. She did not know his story, but she felt its weight. It made her see him differently, not as a stranger, but as someone shaped by pain and patience. When the meeting ended, chairs scraped softly against the floor. People left with quiet goodbyes. The room emptied slowly. Emma stood, unsure why her hands trembled. Daniel walked toward her, his expression thoughtful. "I'm glad you stayed," he said. She surprised herself by answering without hesitation. "Me too." They walked to the door together. The rain had softened, but it still fell steadily. Emma pulled her coat tighter, feeling the cold creep in. Daniel hesitated, then spoke again, his voice low. "Maybe I'll see you again." Place has a way of bringing people back. Emma nodded, unsure whether he meant the building or something else entirely. She stepped outside, the door closing gently behind her. As she walked away, she felt a strange mix of calm and unease. Something had begun, and she did not yet know its shape. The days that followed were filled with routine. But something underneath had changed. Emma found herself thinking of the quiet man by the lake, the way he listened, the way he seemed present without asking for anything. She told herself it was nothing, just a brief connection formed during a storm. Still, when the next Sunday arrived, She found her steps leading her back toward the center. Daniel noticed her the moment she walked in. He felt relief before he understood why. It's time their conversation flowed more easily. They talked about books, about teaching, about small towns and long drives. They avoided deeper topics, but meaning slipped through anyway. Emma noticed the careful way Daniel chose his words. Daniel noticed the strength behind Emma's calm voice. They began meeting. Outside the center, too. Coffee near the lake. Short walks. Shared silences that felt full instead of awkward. Their connection grew not through grand gestures, but through attention, through listening. Through moments that felt ordinary but carried weight, Emma learned that Daniel crossed the border often, moving between Canada and the U.S. with ease but also distance. She learned he had once been married, though he did not yet share more. Daniel learned that Emma valued independence because she had once lost herself trying to hold a relationship together. They did not rush. They did not label anything. They simply allowed space for whatever this was, yet beneath the calm both felt tension. They were adults, shaped by experience, cautious by nature. Attraction was there, but so was fear. They stood close sometimes, close enough to feel warmth, but never crossed a line. The restraint made everything sharper. One evening, as the sun dipped low and the lake turned dark, Daniel finally spoke about his past. He told her about loss, about how love does not disappear when someone is gone. It stays, changes, teaches. Patience. He did not describe pain in detail, but Emma felt it anyway. Oh. She listened without interrupting, without trying to comfort him with empty words. Her silence was steady, supportive. Emma shared her own truth later. How a long relationship had ended not with anger, but with quiet distance. How she had learned to choose herself even when it hurt. Daniel heard the strength in her voice and understood the cost behind it. What they shared bound them closer, but it also raised questions neither could ignore. There were borders, responsibilities, unfinished grief. There was timing. There was fear of wanting something that might not last. They did not speak for days after that evening. The distance felt heavy. Emma told herself she was protecting her heart. Daniel told himself the same, yet neither found peace in the silence. The storm that had brought them together had passed, but something far more powerful remained. As winter approached, the lake grew still and the air sharpened. Emma stood one evening outside the community center, hesitating before opening the door, unaware of what she would find inside, or what choice she might soon have to make. And inside, Daniel stacked chairs once again, unaware that the quiet balance he had built was about to be tested in ways he never expected. The following week came quickly, almost as if the universe had marked the calendar just for them. Emma found herself walking toward the lakeside center again, this time with purpose. She was not chasing the storm. The sky was clear, the sun warm, and yet a tension in her chest made her steps brisk. She arrived to find Daniel already there, moving chairs into neat rows, his back to the door. He paused when he saw her, a small smile breaking the usual calm mask. The connection from their first meeting had not faded, had grown in the silence, in the anticipation neither had acknowledged out loud. Their conversation started cautiously, as if both were testing the waters before diving in. They spoke of trivial things at first, books Emma had been editing, a new teaching method Daniel was trying with his students, but the words carried weight because of what was left unsaid. Each glance lingered a fraction longer than needed. Each laugh held a little more warmth. They began to meet outside the center as well, walking along the lake, sharing quiet moments, finding comfort in each other's company. It was ordinary, yet extraordinary. One afternoon, as they walked under the golden haze of late autumn, Daniel shared more about his past. He spoke softly of his late wife, explaining how illness had taken her slowly, leaving him with memories that felt alive and heavy all at once. Emma listened, feeling a tightness in her chest, not from sadness, but from understanding. She did not offer platitudes. She simply stayed beside him, letting her presence be enough. Her silence spoke of respect, of patience, and it connected them in a way words could not. Emma, in turn, opened up about her own experiences. She told Daniel about a relationship that had ended quietly, not with anger, but with distance, leaving her to navigate the world alone for years. She spoke of learning to rely on herself, the loneliness that came with independence, and the cautious hope she sometimes allowed herself to feel. Daniel absorbed every word, sensing the strength beneath her calm voice and the vulnerability she did not show to the world. As weeks passed, their connection deepened, though they never crossed a line. Physical closeness remained minimal, but the emotional intimacy grew intense. A shared glance across a room, the brushing of hands when passing something, or a soft laugh at a quiet joke call of, it became charged with meaning. Both understood the risks of rushing into something undefined, but both felt the pull of something neither could name yet. Then one night, as winter approached and the lake froze at the edges, Daniel invited Emma for a walk along the shore. Air was crisp and their breath mingled in small clouds. The world felt still around them. For the first time, they acknowledged the tension that had been building for weeks. "I don't know what this is," Daniel said, breaking the quiet, "but I know it matters." Emma stopped and looked at him, the fading light catching in her eyes. "That's what scares me," she admitted. Her voice was steady, but her chest tightened. She felt the weight of what he had said, the unspoken possibilities, and the potential heartbreak. They talked late into the evening, walking side by side, each sharing fears and hopes. They spoke about the complications of their lives, the distances, the responsibilities, the unfinished grief. They did not shy away from the truth, and in that honesty, something shifted. They were no longer just two people drawn together by chance. They were two people choosing to face uncertainty together. Days passed without seeing each other. Emma tried to focus on her work, but her thoughts always drifted to Daniel, to the gentle way he listened, to the warmth in his eyes. Daniel felt the same, noticing how quiet the world seemed without her presence. The distance tested them, and in that test, they realized how strong their connection had become. Finally, Emma returned to the community center one cold evening. She pushed the door open slowly, unsure of what she might find, and found Daniel alone, stacking chairs just as he had on the first day they met. He looked up, startled, and for a moment they simply stared at each other. The silence between them was not empty. It was full of unspoken words, shared memories, and the quiet acknowledgement of feelings neither could ignore. "We can't pretend. This didn't happen," Emma said finally, her voice soft but firm. Daniel nodded, his expression serious yet gentle. "No, we can't." They did not rush into declarations of love. They did not need to. That moment, standing together in the quiet room, was enough. It carried the weight of months of careful connection, of trust, of shared vulnerability. It was a moment that required courage, and both of them felt it deeply. As they stood there, facing the reality of their feelings, they knew the road ahead would be complicated. There were still borders to navigate, responsibilities to honor, and old wounds that had not fully healed. Yet there was also hope, quiet, but persistent, that something meaningful could grow from this unusual situation. Emma and Daniel did not pretend to have all the answers. They only knew that the bond between them was rare, fragile, and precious. And as they walked toward the door together, leaving the quiet room behind, they understood that sometimes life presents moments not as accidents, but as invitations. Invitations to take a chance, to embrace uncertainty, and to allow love to take shape slowly, patiently, and fully. The lake outside reflected the first stars of winter. The world seemed vast, cold, and yet strangely gentle. They walked side by side, hearts aligned in quiet anticipation. Neither could predict what would come next, but both knew one truth with certainty. Some connections are worth waiting for, worth risking everything for, and worth exploring even when the ending remains unknown. That night, as they parted under the soft glow of streetlights, both felt the same mix of longing and hope. Something had begun that could not be undone, and though the future was uncertain, they were ready to face it together. The unusual situation that had brought them here had done more than introduce to lives it had opened the door to a possibility neither had dared to dream before. And as Emma walked home through the crisp winter air, she felt it clearly. Love does not always arrive at the expected time in the expected way. Sometimes it arrives quietly, in moments of coincidence and choice, in shared silences and simple gestures, and in the rare courage to acknowledge that feelings cannot be ignored. Daniel felt it too, standing by the center, watching the stars reflect on the frozen lake, understanding that some beginnings do not shout, they whisper. They wait, and they ask only for attention and care. The story was far from over. Decisions lay ahead. Challenges would come. But for the first time in years, both Emma and Daniel felt a certainty that they had not known in a long time. That connection, honesty, and emotional courage could lead to something worth pursuing. And as winter deepened, they both knew, without needing to say it aloud, that this was just the beginning of a journey neither would take alone.